Top. Okay, welcome to the Google Maps on Steroids presentation. My name is Mitchell Mol, as you can see. Mendix MVP, co-owner at Blue Green Solutions. Been building with Mendix for the past 14 years, including widgets and Java extensions and whatnot. Let's start with a few questions. So, has anyone here ever created their own widget? Well, that's better than the previous group. Who knows? Who knows that there are actually two frameworks for widgets? I'm assuming you do. And then, how many of you have implemented a map in your apps? Many maps. Well, given that there were only two people that actually have built widgets, let's go back to some basics. What are widgets? So pretty much every element you see here on the right side on the page is a widget. It is defined in Studio Pro. You have some properties, you specify how it needs to render, and then it magically renders on the page, which on CSS of course. There's a lot of widgets available on the platform. Some come standardly packaged with Studio Pro, as we call them platform build. But you also have a lot of marketplace add-ons. Some of them are supported by the platform, which is technically just Mendix. Some of them are by partners. And then there's community widgets, which is, I guess, the majority, because everybody in the community builds their own very cool widgets, including us. They're built either using Dojo or React. React is the new way of building them, also called pluggable widgets. Dojo is going away, so if you're ever thinking about building a widget, don't use Dojo. And then, of course, supplemented by HTML and CSS. And what does it take to build custom widgets? Well, there's the nice client component, which is rendered in the client either in the web browser or as part of the native package. And that widget is packaged in a nice zip file, which we call a widget package. And it has a very good definition in there. So the definition shows how it renders in Studio Pro, how it renders the attributes, the description, the properties are defined in there that you can use in your actual JavaScript of the widget. You can group those properties for ease of use. You'll see later that our maps widget definitely needed some grouping because there are a lot of properties. And then you can either build this completely from scratch, setting up all the files and everything and the folder structure yourself, but fortunately Mendix provides a scaffolding method. You do have to type in some code in the command line, but then it generates it based on some questions asked, and you have your basic widget, which doesn't do anything yet, other than you can drag it in your Studio Pro and sort of render something that doesn't show anything. It does this with NPM and Node.js that you do have to install. And of course, when you're building widgets, you need React, TypeScript knowledge is preferable. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult. You can try to ask ChatGPT, but as we've seen during the Clever meeting, it hallucinates and then it loses its way. And then one of the widgets we built or built alongside with Jelte, Jelte, as I like to call him, widget king, that has built many very nice widgets and unfortunately left Mendix at some point because, I don't know. We built the Google Maps widget for us. It's fully pluggable, so it's React based. It contains not just markers, but also areas, like you can see here, this nice circle. Route rendering, directions, drawings, like the other stuff that I put on here.
Are you tracking all your employees here?
Or? No, definitely not. But I am tracking some of the Mendix employees. Distance calculation, elevation. So a customer who we've originally started building this map widget for does projects over in Colorado with lots of mountains and mountainous area, and they need to know how elevated stuff is across a certain area. Address lookup, so you can just type in an address, it gives you back the actual, I got this one. It actually gives you back the lat long, but also some details about the address, the place ID, that kind of stuff, and loads of layers. So everything you see here, except for for the heart, because I couldn't shape it that nicely in a GeoJSON, is a layer. Whether it's the shapes that you see here in KML or GeoJSON form, or the markers, everything is a layer, either from the database or from a file directly. Demo time. And let's reload that. As you can see here, we have those same markers. Some of them are blue dots because there are multiple clustered together. If I click on them, and I have to click on the right one. Oh, that was a nice error. I zoom in to the level where I can actually split them up and interface with each of them individually. If I would, for example, type in an address, it will give me the address information, but it will also move to the address, sort of, not zoomed in. That's unfortunate. Let's try this again. Wow. There we go, 3 times. And then you could also mention that this marker is changeable, and then you can move it and it gives you back the actual lat long that you put it on. So for example, for municipalities that want to know where exactly the trash was dropped that you are reporting, you can type in an address and then you can move the marker to the exact location, because sometimes it's not an exact address, but it's at somewhere in a field or something like that. You can also interface with the map from outside in more other ways. So for example, pretty much all of the items you see on here that you could just enable from outside, you could also click on a NanoFlow button, and then it does the exact same thing. Whoa, that's a bit far away. And the elevation, for example, I mentioned. Yeah, as you can see, the Netherlands is pretty much somewhere over here, and then we have some sort of hill in Germany somewhere. And it obviously condenses it because I had a pretty large area, but especially one of our customers that needed this function, they are in Colorado, there's lots of mountains around it, and you obviously want to know whether you can actually drill somewhere without having to worry about some hilly stuff. But also if I, let's turn that off.
That's 8 centimeters, guys.
So if I click on the KML file, in this case that's been rendered over all of the Netherlands, I just specified an actionable event, and then it, in this case, just shows me the dialog. But you could put anything behind this. If I want to know which exact markers are in here and I want to do something with it, I can also select them, and it gives me back the exact marker items, which are just Mendix IDs that you get back because these were loaded from the database. How much time do I have? Good. If we go to the directions, one of our own ventures where we register trip registration and want to know exactly how the trip went, because Google sort of knows the place, but sometimes it takes a weird route. You want to render that to the user. We use the Falcon widget, I believe, but that one can render it on the page and then it doesn't give it back to the database. So we have to do a second API call. And while you get a lot of free Google API calls, if you scale, then obviously at some point you have to pay too much. And therefore we put it in our own widget, and now if we do the API call, we give it the JSON to our widget, it just renders it for us. So we can do one API call where we did 2 before. If we go to this is the backend, very ugly, I know, but I'm gonna turn on some things that you need for the quiz later. Hint, hint. Now I have some GeoJSON that I loaded directly from the database, and as you can see, we have a nice heart. It's not as nice as the one from the presentation, but it does the trick, and it's purely based on JSON and pointers and colors and whatnot. And of course, we have some Mendix text.
They gotta show both, so I can take
There we go. And then if we want to draw some things on there, whether it's a marker or it's a nice graph or maybe some sort of weird shape, and then store it, it actually gives us back a GeoJSON for that as well, which you can then render later on, or you could export it and use it in different mapping tools.
Can you do distance tracking?
We have, let's see, this is it. We can draw this and know how far it is, but we could also, and that's the other one, get the size of a actual area. And then hopefully this works again, because last time it did.
What can you not do with the map that you want to do? Anything missing? I mean, it looks like
I haven't thought of anything yet. Some of the things that are in here are actually not for the customer that I described, but just stuff that we noticed that we needed in different situations, and we essentially wanted to go back to just needing one map widget. But recently we got the request from the customer, okay, I want to make my area also clickable, and apparently that didn't work yet. So sometimes some things pop up. If we look at this maps widget in the in Studio Pro, as you can see, it renders a little bit like, for example, the gallery widget. All of our layers are pluggable areas as well. So most of them, or all of them, only have a simple text in there, but I could drag a button in there as well, or maybe even a list for a grid or something like that. If we open up the widget itself, as I said, there is definitely some grouping necessary. This particular widget has everything. Fortunately, Jelte thought of that and said, well, if you don't need everything, then we can just disable some items, right? And then we don't have so many tabs. And then we enable the directions, and then we have a directions tab where we can specify some direction stuff. Unfortunately, one of the things that I've always found a little bit annoying is that I can't resize this. So people from Mendix here, guys, can we fix this? Because we do in this particular map have a couple of layers, and you can either have single points, static data, or you can have data that is dynamic based on associated items, full lists, or maybe a file. We also have GPX files in here. Those are a Esri standard, but they don't really like to play nice, so it's sort of supported, but not really. And then our points of interest are just a simple database query that eventually gives back some data with a lat long, of course. We specify a nanoflow on here that's being called when you change the marker. And then also what the name of that marker is, because that interfaces with the marker specification, where you can say, okay, this particular marker has this particular image on there. And then because you also have clusters, and the clusters work in a certain way, you could also say that certain items, if they're clustered together, have their own type of image. For example, if you have tickets on there and you have stakeholders, and the tickets grouped together need to look like a bug or priority ticket, etc. And then if they're all together, they are a nice rainbow. And then if you cluster too many different items together, then you also have the cluster specification, where you can say, okay, if we're zoomed out this far, or if they're this close together, they get clustered into, for example, the blue dot that I showed earlier. And of course, everything in terms of the UI is also updatable. That's not the one, the controls. So if you want to show Street View, zoom, or whatever, by default it's enabled, but you can also disable it. All of it is expressions, so you could also store this in an object, and then somebody has their own personal configuration, for example, like we also see with the Data Grid 2 widget. So who wants to create their own widget? There weren't a whole lot that created their own widget yet. Nice. Do you have any ideas for the widgets that you would like to create? And the ones that created a widget, did you create pluggable widgets yet? Or only Dojo widgets? Only Dojo. Well, time to learn some new skills if you want to create more widgets. Yeah, and who would like to see some more from our Maps widget? Offline, of course, but talk to me during the drinks part. Well, if you already have JavaScript knowledge, it's fairly doable to start based on that. It would be good to have a foundation of React, but I just dove into it, also with the Dojo part 8 years ago, because those types of the knowledge about that is very accessible from our nice AI overlords. And the part that's Mendix specific is a little bit less accessible, because even though Maya is trying, it hasn't learned too much about it yet. So yeah, I would say just try it out. If you already have basic JavaScript knowledge or more advanced JavaScript knowledge because you build a Dojo widget, it should be doable. And also there's many examples from Mendix themselves, not always built in the way how you would want to, because they also have a very strict backlog. Yeah, I'm looking at you. You build nothing, but you're like, wow. But yeah, I definitely started that way as well. So just just extracting the widget, looking at how it's been built, how things work, trying to change things, and then based on that learn. Any questions from the group?
And maybe, even though I'm with the company, is there any use case for this in like other customers and really support? Would this be practical?
Well, we're already using it for 2 customers. Tech Venture is using it, Urban is using it. I had the first group that was really active with my questions, at least 3 folks showing interest that might want to use it in their project too. So put on your sales hat and let's go. But yeah, this has mostly been developed with 1 customer, but keeping in mind that we wanted to do more with it. So we do want to put it as a partner supported widget on the App Store.
How many people worked on it?
2, mostly Jelte, and then a little bit for me. And he worked on it for like 20 days, man days, or something like that. But he already had a lot of experience. Yeah, we hired Jelte to build this because he was freelancing, and we were like, well, we need a nice widget. I could do it, but it probably takes me like 50 days. So. He got paid for the labor, and now it's ours. Yeah. Yes. I mean, he also doesn't want to continuously keep on supporting Mendix widgets, as he made very known to the community. So, kind of worked for both. I don't know.
I'm not going to speculate on anything.
4 more minutes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot of customization possible, as we like you showed, but like that also comes with a price. Like making it accessible to everyone. How do you how are you gonna help people?
Yeah, so what we try to do, and that's the bit that I helped Jelte with, is to make sure that it's very friendly for developers. So there's a lot of, if we go to the widget part, there's a lot of explanations. We try to make it as self-explanatory as possible wherever possible. I know, but that's why you generally start with nothing enabled pretty much, and you work your way through what you need, because that's why this is also your starting tab. You see, okay, I need autocomplete. Okay, I enable autocomplete, and then I see a tab visible. Let's go there. From the user perspective, you won't see a map that I just showed you with pretty much everything on there either, because that's generally not the use case. But having everything in one widget allows us to train at least our people on that same widget and not having to combine multiple Google Maps widgets in one app.
Yeah, I understand that you want everything because then it makes it easier to.
Yeah.
But it's very daunting at first.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Google Maps itself has even more features than we have in here still. And the documentation from Google Maps itself isn't all too clear either, including the coding part. So we try to make this as low code as possible for, well, I think there's only 1 other colleague in Blue Green Solutions that actually knows how to do something with JavaScript, let alone widget building. So we wanted to make this as accessible from that perspective.
marketplace eventually when it ends up there.
Yeah, and Jiri is actually someone that jumped into the project when the widget was already there. So maybe Jiri can say something about how easy or not easy it was to jump in.
It is alright. Eventually, like, it just clicks, and then it was actually straightforward. Especially, like, it was just the layers that I had to sort of understand. I guess that was what gave me the most problems. But then, I mean, but the version that I was working with didn't have all those. Well, I guess it just wasn't enabled.
True. Yeah. Like I said, if you don't enable all of the features on the starting configuration tab, then it's more easy, more accessible because it's not like you see a forest. Okay, which tree am I looking for?